So just before we get started, everybody, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping items to ensure an enjoyable webinar experience and to reduce background noise. All attendees will be muted for the duration of the webinar. If you do have any questions, please enter them through the webinar control panel and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. So there will be a question period at the end of today's presentation. This webinar is being recorded and we'll make it available on our YouTube channel following the broadcast. Be sure to share your thoughts today during the webinar by tweeting to us at CAF_FCA or on Facebook at CAF Apprenticeship. So we're kicking off part one of our series today with the topic of employer engagement. We're excited to have our guest presenter, Louie Leombruni from ArcelorMittal Dofasco, join us today. But before we welcome Louie, I'm pleased to introduce Emily Arrow-Smith, who is our lead researcher here at CAF and who will start us off this afternoon. So welcome, Emily. I know that you're just going to get your slides up there on the screen. Great, perfect. I see everything great, Emily.
Great, thanks, Racine. So welcome everybody to our first in a series of webinars that we'll be holding over the next year called The Future of Apprenticeship in Canada. At our conference in Vancouver, BC in June 2016, 300 stakeholders from across the country discussed some common challenges in apprenticeship training, and they shared best practices and ideas for future action. So in each of these webinars which we're going to be holding, we're going to be talking about and sharing with you the feedback that we received at our national conference. And we really focused the discussion on 8 important themes in apprenticeship. And the number one theme was employer engagement. We also talked about on-the-job training and mentoring, harmonization, completion, welcoming workplaces, career awareness, technology, and technical training. So over the next year, we're going to be having a series of webinars, and we're going to be sharing with the wider apprenticeship community what diverse apprenticeship stakeholders said about each of these key 8 themes to apprenticeship. So today I'd like to start off the presentation by talking a bit about what these 300 stakeholders at our national conference said about employer engagement. So stakeholders did acknowledge that there are employer champions out there who do hire and train apprentices, and really they see apprenticeship as fundamental part of their HR strategy that is key to enhanced business performance for them. These employers train because they need highly skilled, safe, and productive workers, and the alternatives don't work for their trade or sector. They just find like apprenticeship is the way to get the skilled workers that they need. And by investing in an apprenticeship training program, these employers find that there really are a lot of financial benefits for their business. Stakeholders at the session also talked about common barriers about why employers don't participate. Based on a CAF survey, we know about 19% of employers hire and train apprentices in Canada. And some of the barriers that the stakeholders at the dialogue talked about included, no demand or not enough work, poaching, a perceived administrative burden, an inability to teach the full scope of the trade. And it was noted by the stakeholders that small to medium-sized businesses in particular may face a challenge because they have limited HR and administrative help to help them manage an apprenticeship program. Stakeholders said, there's all these great programs and financial supports and resources available, but sometimes employers lack awareness, and sometimes maybe the communication with employers lacks coordination. Employers might not understand the concept of apprenticeship or be familiar with system requirements. Some people at the dialogue felt that it was great to have support for employers, but sometimes there was a perception that applying for these grants might be perceived by the employer as being burdensome from an administrative point of view. So stakeholders at the dialogue were encouraged to really talk about best practices for employer engagement. And they talked about a number of factors that influence effective employer engagement. And one of the key themes that came out of this discussion was really the importance of partnerships, those industry partnerships, and having direct input from industry in any kind of employer engagement exercise or vision was just considered so important by the stakeholders in the room. And, you know, a lot of the discussion centered around how can we facilitate these partnerships and make them even stronger. We really need to understand what companies are looking for, and then we need to work in collaboration with colleges or unions, other educational institutions, nonprofits, government, and we need to work with the employers. And then this is how we're going to solve a lot of our challenges with apprenticeship. We've got to come together and work together. When we asked stakeholders at the Future of Apprenticeship session about solutions, stakeholders really talked about establishing a vision for employer engagement, that having some leadership and a vision was really important, and the whole notion that it has to be a long-term vision, and that employers are on a continuum, and we're not going to convert every employer just through one project or one activity, but we have to keep working at it. It's a long-term process. We've got to really build a training culture and a sense of community among employers, and this will support them working together collectively to train apprentices and might reduce some of the concerns that some employers feel about poaching. We need to develop appropriate resources, information, and supports. And once again, this idea of partnership was raised, and the importance of employer champions and understanding what they do to make apprenticeship work and then sharing that with other employers. Stakeholders talked about encouraging proactive engagement of government in employer engagement activities, streamlining administrative processes as much as possible to really make it straightforward for employers, especially those small and medium-sized employers who don't have HR staff and really need to have a straightforward process. Stakeholders talked about the importance of quality training for apprentices. Some folks raised the idea of creating maybe a national fund for employers who want to support the high quality training of apprentices, and maybe employers who are just starting out a program could access this fund that would help support high quality training. The idea of supporting collaboration was emphasized, and the notion of establishing loyalty programs. So those were just some of the insights that were discussed and raised at the Future of Apprenticeship discussion. Now I'd like to turn it over to Louie Leombruni. I'm just going to give you a brief bio before Louie begins his presentation. Louie is the manager at ArcelorMittal University Regional Campus at ArcelorMittal Dofasco in Hamilton. Throughout his 30-year career, with ArcelorMittal Dofasco, he's held multiple positions from team leader and asset coach to his current position as manager, where he is responsible for all aspects of learning and development, including skills trades development and managing one of the largest private sector apprenticeship programs in the country. Louie is a graduate from Mohawk College's Electrical Control System Technology program, and he is a licensed electrical construction and maintenance electrician. He also has obtained the standing of Master Electrician. Louie currently serves on the Board of Governors for the Ontario College of Trades, and he is a director on Skills Ontario, Canada, as well as the Conference Board of Canada Council for Learning and Leadership Development. and he is a proud champion member of the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum. Over to you, Louie.
Thank you for the intro. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to participate on this webinar. This topic of employer engagement is very important to us here at ArcelorMittal Dofasco, and we are definitely looking forward to working with all of you on this and working in a way that we can meet the challenges of the future as it comes to skilled trades in the not only in the province of Ontario but in the country of Canada. So just bear with me here. So before I get into the specifics of some of the programs that we're running here locally, I want to give some context around what is ArcelorMittal. So we are a large steel and mining company. We are one of the largest in the world. We have operations in 60 countries with a footprint in 19 of them, and that's an industrial footprint. Some of the numbers are, as you can see on the screen, are quite large in terms of 84.6 million tons of crude steel and 73.7 million tons of iron ore. This is production in 2015. Approximately, we have operations in the Americas, we have operations in Europe, and also other regions of the world. But our focus is predominantly in Europe, with 40% of the steel being produced there, and 38% of the steel being produced in the Americas. So I would like to sort of give you a little bit of background in terms of providing the context about ArcelorMittal, but more importantly, what is it that we do here in Canada and then regionally, as well as the programs that we execute on them. So in Canada, we have well over 10,000 employees that are direct employees of ArcelorMittal. We have operations in numerous areas, and for those of you that really like the north, we even have a mining operations in Baffinland, and I would imagine that if you are there now, it'd be quite cold. We have several operations in Quebec, and a bulk of them also in Southern Ontario. Specifically in Southern Ontario, we have the head office for our mining division for Canada. We also have our operation facility here at ArcelorMittal Dofasco, which is where I'm located. And we employ about 6,000 employees in Ontario. And this is direct and indirect. But we also have 40,000 jobs that we support indirectly. And this is in the areas of flat rolled tubular products, tailor welded blanks, and also, again, mentioning earlier about the operations facility in the head office of the mines in Oakville. So in Hamilton specifically, we have approximately 5,000 employees. We create and contribute to about 22,000 indirect jobs. More than $2.5 billion of annual procurement, and this is dispersed amongst 3,000 suppliers. So as you can see, we are a very large global organization. We represent a lot of different countries, or in a lot of different countries, but we have a very significant presence here in Canada and specifically in Ontario. And we touch a lot of people in doing this. And in doing that, when we talk about the people side of the business, we've been recognized, you know, for specifically around the apprenticeship and the skilled trades challenges that we've had to encounter up until this point. And to support this, we've been very fortunate in that we've had to do our own programs, but at the same time, we've had to do them in a way that we could partner with other organizations. So a little bit of a historical perspective. Early on, when we weren't even ArcelorMittal Dofasco, we were strictly Dofasco, and we've been here over 100 years. We were fortunate that our leaders believed in growing our own, and I think that's an integral part of any sort of movement towards addressing the skilled trade shortage. You need to have leaders that understand that growing your own is critical. And we had that. We've been fortunate to do that. And throughout the years, we continue to get that support, and to the point that the program continued to evolve. And ArcelorMittal Dofasco has actually been recognized as a leader and innovator in apprenticeship programs. We received the Ontario Minister's Award for Excellence both in 2003 and 2013. And this program was done in partnership with Mohawk College. The program specifically is referred to as the Co-op Apprenticeship Technician Program, and I'll give you more details about that as I go through, but specifically it is regarding the future trends in trades, especially in an advanced manufacturing organization like ours, and what is it that skill sets were needed. And we recognized this in the late 90s, and we built this program, again, in partnership with Mohawk and the government, and it really encompasses a whole slew of forward-thinking approaches, and like I said, I'll get to it later on in more detail. We've had an informal apprenticeship program since 1948, and this was even before there was lots of regulation. We had our own sort of grow your own programs. We even had our own training facility on site, which we still have today, and this helps support the apprentices early on in our organization. Today, we have one of the largest apprenticeship programs in Canada. We've graduated well over 2,000 apprentices through it. All our major trade skills are covered under our apprenticeship program. And currently we have, on average, about 100 apprentices. And the reason I say on average is that depending on what part of their journey they are on, we have apprentices coming into the system and apprentices graduating. So that's why we say on average we have about 100 apprentices. We generally recruit between 30 to 35 apprentices yearly, and this number is adjusted through a very structured process that we use that's called workforce planning, and I'll get into that later on as well. We are fortunate enough to have an on-site skills training center. Actually, we are a regional campus for ArcelorMittal. ArcelorMittal has a university. It's based out of Luxembourg, and there are 6 regional campuses worldwide, and we are one of them, and we represent the North America region. We're also very lucky to have a strong partner, and that is Mohawk College. Their training facility is state-of-the-art, and when our apprentices go to get their training at the college, they're actually getting exposed to equipment that they would see once they come back into the manufacturing world. All our apprentices graduate with an Ontario Government Certificate of Apprenticeship, and we require them to write and pass the Certificate of Qualification. Also, the program is so comprehensive that we find that a lot of our maintenance leaders end up getting promoted from being a tradesperson into these roles. And we find that this holds a lot of credibility for future apprentices and future tradespeople, because they'll know that there are opportunities for them, as well as that the person they're probably reporting to has come up through the ranks the way they are currently doing. This next slide is basically just giving you the numbers for our 2017. And as you can see there, we have 94 permanent apprentices currently in the system, and that was as of last week. We are bringing in 20 more permanent hires from our co-op program in May. We're looking at 30 to 50 more to hire between February and December, and these will be additional apprentices. And as you can see, there's a minus sign there because we believe that by the end of the year, there'll be 35 apprentices that will be coming off the apprenticeship program. And this is when they now get promoted into their designated trade areas throughout the organization. So essentially our forecast is that between 109 to 129 permanent apprentices at the end of the year, and that'll be carried on into 2018. We also, as I mentioned to you earlier, bring co-op apprentices in support of the apprenticeship co-op program. And there'll be 23 coming in January of this year, and that's their second term of the 12-month co-op. And in May of this year, we'll be bringing in 24 more, and this will be in their first term of the co-op program. And I'll give you the sort of the layout of that and how it works in the next upcoming slides. In terms of what apprentices do we currently have in the system, This slide represents that, and you can see they're all the major programs that are out there that are a requirement, and this is the ones that we also know are challenges, significant challenges in trying to find resources for. So we have the industrial electrician, industrial mechanic millwright, instrumentation control technician. This is a new one for the province of Ontario. I believe it's been out in other provinces for many more years, but this is a new one here. Steam fitter, pipe fitter, HVAC or refrigeration and air conditioning, the welder, electric motor systems technician, hoisting engineer, mobile crane operator, machinist, and brick and stone mason. These are all the current active apprentices that we have participating at this moment. So our apprenticeship program is truly an investment. We see it as an investment in the future, and we see it as a sustainability standpoint from our organization's view. And to such, we've looked at this from a 5-year forward projection. So if I look at specifically the item there where it's itemized as number 1, where it says workforce planning, this is probably the most critical component of this process. Everything's important, but if you have to look at it in terms of a forward-thinking view, you have to look at it from that point. And what we say is we look out 5 years to when somebody we believe is going to be retiring. And we use a rule of thumb that when someone gets to about the age of 60 years of age or 40 years of experience, we know that they're pretty well coming to where they're going to decide they're going to be going at any given time. So as such, we work our way back from that. So in other words, if somebody is going to be retiring in 2022, for example, we would be bringing them in this year. When I say we would be bringing them, we would be going to the apprenticeship technician program and start to bring in people this current year. And the reason being is we believe that this gives us enough overlap to ensure that we transfer the knowledge from the senior tradesperson to a more junior employee or an apprentice. And this also gives the exposure that is needed, because certain things that we have to work on here don't necessarily come up on a yearly basis. They may take 2 or 3 years before a major outage is required on a piece of equipment, and you want to make sure that there's enough overlap to ensure that there's knowledge transfer. Now, I recognize when we say this that there is a significant investment required, and that's why I said earlier on, this apprenticeship program, we see it as an investment, because you're actually now bringing in someone into the organization before the person they are replacing has left. And this means that you have actually more people in the organizations than your numbers would, let's say, require. But we believe it's an important investment, and it's a required investment if you are trying to remain sustainable, especially in an advanced manufacturing organization. So from the workforce planning, we move to number 2. And this is where we set the apprenticeship budget. So based on our numbers, we are able to calculate how many people we need to bring in over the next, say, 5 years. But if we look at the current year, that we would be bringing in the following year. So in 2018, for example, we will know who we need to bring in. So when it comes time for budget, we are able to set the budget. From that, we go into the third item, which is recruitment and selection, because the mix may be very unique depending on our needs at that current year. We go into a very formal orientation. We make sure that the program has a very clear competency-based learning system, which it looks at what's their competencies needed, their progression, and it's done in a staircase format, and compensation is tied to that. We performance manage the entire program from a centralized view. Thus, we can ensure that as the apprentices are progressing, that they're progressing in the direction that they need to be, and we can make adjustments accordingly to ensure their success. We also look at rotations. I think one of the topics that was brought forward as some of the challenges is that some organizations don't have the ability to get full exposure to the trades, and that's no different here. We have certain areas where the apprentices need to be moved because the area that they're currently in will not give them the full scope of the trade. We also have training, supplementary training that's required. That's, advanced manufacturing, ArcelorMittal Dofasco specific. And for the programs that are not part of the apprenticeship technician program, co-op program, there's also additional trade school that may be required. And then we go into a very formal placement process. And this is where we offer the opportunity for the apprentice themselves to say, you've been rotated through the organization in a few locations. What was your preferred area? And we also offer the leadership of the areas that have had exposure to the apprentices to say, out of apprentices, which one do you believe fit into your area the best? And this, we do this because we believe if we can find a win-win where we say the apprentice picks an area and the leadership of that area picks that apprentice, then we know there's going to be a better chance for success. Now, I mentioned earlier that we can't do this on our own, and this slide really represents how we've been able to do the work we've done today and how we know moving forward the partnership model has to expand to include more stakeholders. So to execute on our program specifically, all these people in terms of organizations have to be willing to participate and support. So you start with the ministry, that's in the province of Ontario, it's the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development. You have the college, which is the Ontario College of Trades. You have the support of the community college. In our case, it's Mohawk College. You need the apprentice, you need the pool of apprentices, people that are interested in wanting to become, professional tradespeople. And then you need the employer. You need the employer that's willing to take a risk, willing to make the investment, and recognizing that it's critical for the success of their organization. Specifically for us, the two programs that are aligned for us in terms of the highest hiring needs, it's the Manufacturing Engineering Technician program and the Electrical Engineering Technician Power program. So both these programs are critical to us in terms of input with regards to where our highest demand is for tradespeople. And those are the ones I'm going to talk about more specifically in terms of what kind of programs do we run that is really geared to the Apprenticeship Technician Co-op program. So talking specifically about it, this program is what I've been referring to in a few other comments and other slides. But as you can see, if you look at the left side of the page, what entry-level people are you looking for? It shows right on this slide, secondary school graduates. That was when, we first started down this path. Really the predominant input, it was from secondary schools. But as that pool started to die out in terms of the numbers weren't being fed into it, we've recognized we had to actually work our way even further back. We actually had to go into the high schools and start working with the high schools to rebrand not only ArcelorMittal Dofasco as an advanced manufacturing organization, but also rebrand trades and getting people to recognize that being a tradesperson is a great profession. And it isn't what in the past people have been told to, is that, well, if you're not doing well in math and if you're not doing well in English, why don't you go maybe into the trades? For us specifically in advanced manufacturing, we can't afford that kind of a secondary thought. We want people that want to make the trades their career choice and their profession and recognize that there are great opportunities for them in that area. So what we're also finding now is that the input into this program is also people looking at second career choices. They've tried, they've gone to maybe university, they've gone to college, maybe they even went out into the workforce for a little while, and they've recognized that, wow, I'd like to give something else a try, and this seems like a really great opportunity. So the program then feeds into essentially a 2-year postgraduate technician program that you would receive a diploma from going to any local community college here in Ontario. But the added benefit of this is that there are work terms built in, as well as the curriculum is designed in such a way that you are now exempt from basic, intermediate, and advanced trade school upon completion. Also upon completion, you have accumulated just over 2,600 hours of trade experience. So this is also very good for the apprentice in that they have the ability to go and market themselves and say, I've had this 2-year diploma, I've completed basic, intermediate, advanced trade school, and I've also got just over a year of experience. So I'm no longer, that junior apprentice that's basically totally green and does not have any work experience. So here, this is just a point in time in terms of timeline that we started out, but essentially if you're looking at it, if the program started in September of 2015, you would go into semester 1 of a traditional 2-year technician program at Mohawk. You go into and that would go from September to January. Then from January to May, you would go into your semester 2, and then you would come and work with us or any other organization that wants to participate in this model for the first work term experience. And that would be from May to September. And that would be sort of during the summer months. And that's a 4-month term. Then in September, they would go back to school. And this would be their 3rd semester of the 2-year technician program. And then they would go have the opportunity to go work for a whole year at another organization or the same organization where they spent the first 4 months in. And this gives a great opportunity for them to become much more immersed, not only in the trade, but also in the organization that they are with. And then upon completion of the, from January to January of the work term, they go back to school for their 4th semester and graduate out of the 2-year technician component come May. Now, assuming all along that they've been successful in their academic side as well as their work terms. So in ArcelorMittal Dofasco specifically, when I said that we manage the program centrally, when we're managing it, this is what the kind of things we're looking for. We're looking for how did they do academically, how did they do during their work experiences, are they a good fit to us as an organization, do they see themselves as a good fit to the organization, or for that matter, do they see themselves as a good fit in terms of the trade? Do they want to be a tradesperson? Do they want to be a tradesperson in the discipline they have chosen? And do they want to be a tradesperson in an advanced manufacturing organization? And this is all the opportunity that they get to experience throughout this program. For us, generally speaking, what we tend to do is come January, before they go back to their semester 4, if the candidates have been successful up until that point and they have been successful in their work term experiences with us, we may make them a conditional job offer. So imagine that, having a student going to school before they even finish their final academic semester, they potentially could have a conditional job offer waiting for them once they graduate. And that conditional job offer is that you go back to semester 4, right, and graduate. So the benefits of a program like this are tremendous in terms of the offerings they give, the benefits to the apprentice, as well as the benefits to the employer. And I'll get into that later on as well. The other part of it you see to the right on this screen is the company apprenticeship training. And this is now where, they've completed 2,600 hours approximately of trade experience. Well, they have to complete the rest of their hours to become obtain the C of A, Certificate of Achievement, and then ready to challenge the CFQ. And this, again, is all based on the ministry guidelines. It's all based on their competency books and the sign-offs associated with that. This next slide that I'm showing you here is essentially it's the same sort of pictorial as the previous slide, but just shows further progression specifically here to us at ArcelorMittal Dofasco. And what we're trying to show is that once you've completed your academic schooling and the work experiences and you're hired full-time, it doesn't mean the learnings have stopped or your career opportunities have stopped. And as you can see, we progress them through different levels. And I remember I referred to earlier about staircases. This is the staircases we talked about. And obviously, as they're progressing, their compensation progresses with it. And also, there is opportunities for them to become, what we in our organization call trade specialists. We have a role for planners, schedulers. There's equipment specialists. And then, obviously, you can go into the leadership realm. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our maintenance leaders do follow this path and continue to progress. So, why do this? As an employer, why would you want to take on some of the logistics associated with this kind of a program? Well, we believe it's well worth it at ArcelorMittal Dofasco, and there are many reasons why, but just to highlight a few, first and foremost, we have the opportunity to recruit from a pool of interested and enthusiastic apprenticeship hopefuls. So no doubt about this. You have the opportunity to spend 16 months with this individual if you're fortunate enough to have them for both work terms. So you get to see firsthand how engaged are they in the trade? How engaged are they to work in an advanced manufacturing organization? We have the ability to screen out and who are the best available candidates. Because if throughout that journey you see that there's some that don't fit, you don't have to offer them a full-time employment at the end of it. And the apprentice still wins because they've had all that experience. It's just not a good fit with your particular organization. And for us, you know, one of the critical things is get that exposure to the students' work ethic and commitment. And this is important because once you've made that job offer to hire them and you hire them, you know, it's very difficult after the fact to try to see if there's a fit. You want to get all that out of the way ahead of time so that when they come in and they're a permanent employee, at that point in hire, they are, you know, they're good to go and ready to fit in. For the apprentice, there are many benefits as well, but predominantly 25% of their required trade competencies have, you know, are basically complete at the point of graduation and the point of hire for us, right? They have completed, like I said earlier, over 2,600 hours of practical apprenticeship time, which is stuff that they can use, they can market themselves with. Another critical component is they will have been exempt from requiring basic, intermediate, and advanced trade school. And this is a great selling feature for not only the student to enroll in this program, but also for then the apprentice to use to market themselves, that when they go to another employer, they don't have to worry about saying, oh, you have to send me back for basic or intermediate or advanced trade school. They have a 2-year technician accreditation diploma from the college, and nobody can take that away from them. In our case, any apprentice that comes through our co-op program, they get a quality basic toolkit, and that is theirs to keep. And probably most importantly, and I know to a lot of parents this will be critical, the apprentice has the ability to earn while they're learning. And the learning that they're getting is just in time. So they get academic learning, they get it reinforced with practical hands-on, which is the whole apprenticeship model, and then they go back and get more academics at the college and come back and get more work experience. So we believe this is a great program, but we also know there are challenges to this program. There are challenges every time that there is any economic upset of any sort. There's always questions why people would want to bring in individuals prior to actually having the need for them. The person hasn't retired yet. But it all boils down to that we have to look at this as an investment. And why? Because it's about the feeder pool. As I mentioned to you earlier, we are facing struggles with making sure that we have enough people wanting to join the skills trades profession. And as such, what ends up happening is that, you know, we're all fighting over an ever shrinking pool of resources that are available to us. Right? So what we want to do is increase the number of that feeder pool. We also need more employers to help establish and support hands-on training for the apprentices. We know we can go to the college, we know we can get more people through the academic portion. The problem that we always face is having enough employers to be willing to take a risk on a first or second year apprentice, or in this case, a co-op student, and say, we are willing to give you the hands-on training that you require to meet the requirements of the program. We need to do this so that we create a balance of tradespeople from a supply versus demand. And this is a point that was brought up earlier, which is to minimize the effects of companies that don't participate in this kind of program. So in other words, we don't want organizations that don't participate in an apprenticeship to then take from the people that do, because then it undermines the whole essence of this, in that why would any organization then want to commit to an apprenticeship program when all they're doing is developing talent for other organizations to be able to sort of recruit them away from them. And this creates a lot of then us and then mentality, and the minute you start doing that, that's when you run into problems, because then the problem becomes all of ours, and we will all be in dire needs of tradespeople, and the skilled trade shortage will only get worse than it already is. The last bullet I talked about is government funding. And what I mean by this is that I think we collectively, with all stakeholders, need to work together, and the government is a critical component of this. And what I'm looking at is saying we need to explore alternative funding models. So if we look at post-secondary education programs, whether you're going to university or whether you're going to college, and you look at how much the government supports those initiatives, and if you translate that into apprenticeship and look at it, that 90% or well over 90% of the apprenticeship training is the hands-on component. At that 90%, the risk is taken by the employer, especially in the first and second year. They're paying for the apprentice and recognizing that the apprentice at that point does not have the full scope of capabilities to know the trade they are in, and there's a lot of training that is required during the first and second year. So we are looking at, is there a different funding model that we can explore that helps support apprenticeship, especially the hands-on training component, for employers that are willing to do that and take the risk with them, and see if we can treat that more like a post-secondary program. And this can't be done, again, in isolation by us, being ArcelorMittal Dofasco, or any one single organization. I think it's all stakeholders working together to recognize it. And I saw in the previous slide deck that was shown earlier that there was some talk around that, is there like a centralized government funding pool that can be tapped into for this? And that's the sort of outside the box thinking that we all need to look at and work together on, so that we can then together meet the challenges around the skills trade shortage. So for me, key takeaways. The skilled trade shortage is a countrywide problem. It's not an ArcelorMittal Dofasco problem. It's not a Hamilton problem, which is where we're located. It's not a Southern Ontario problem or an Ontario problem. It is truly a countrywide problem. And it will have a significant impact on Canadian organizations' capabilities to compete in a global environment. ArcelorMittal Dofasco, we're a steel company, predominantly here located in Hamilton, but we're competing with steel companies all over the world. And to do so, we have to be a truly advanced manufacturing organization. And to do that, we need to have highly skilled tradespeople that are able to not only meet the needs of today in terms of technological needs, but also the ongoing inventions and technological challenges that will be coming around the corner. To do this, again, I mentioned it earlier, we can't do this by ourselves, and we need to work together. And having a forum like this, the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum, having these webinars enables us to hopefully dialogue around this and bring the stakeholders together and come up with very creative solutions as we move forward. Truly, our ability to have highly skilled tradespeople is not only your organization's competitive advantage, but it's really our country's competitive advantage. Thank you very much. I guess I open it up to questions at this point.
Thanks so much, Louie. That was great. I know we've got some questions rolling in, and people have expressed a lot of interest in the information that you gave today. So like I mentioned, I have sent out a couple chat messages. If you do have questions, please enter them through your webinar control panel. We will try to get to a few. We're running a little behind, so if we don't get your question, then we will follow up with you directly after the webinar. So Louie, one of the first questions we had came in is, do you have a formalized mentoring program? And if so, how are mentors and apprentices matched up and evaluated in their respective roles?
Great question. We have I guess we got to be careful of what you call formal apprenticeship program, mentoring program. We definitely have mentors, and the way mentors are identified is by apprentices who see the highly skilled tradespeople as people that are really good at educating them. And they'll bring the names forward, and then we put them through a sort of a battery of assessments from others to ensure that this this isn't just a one-off thing, but really it's defined through a business area, and each area will have identified who a mentor is, and this will be, once again, usually fed from previous apprentices to say, I was working with Joe and he seemed to really be willing to take the time to explain things to me, And we will then track that and make sure that it's not just the one apprentice saying that, but that there is others. And then we'll approach the leadership of that area and identify that person as a mentor. And we recognize them. We have, at the end of the apprenticeship program, once the apprentice is graduated from their and achieved the C of A standing, we have an apprenticeship graduation dinner. And we also have the apprentices identify who were the top mentors for that year. And we recognize them at the apprenticeship graduation dinner and bring them there as well and say thank you very much.
Thanks, Louie. So I'm going to give you two questions. So the first one is, what is your ideal ratio of apprentices to journey persons to ensure quality training in a particular trade? And the second question I'm going to ask is, what kind of success rates do your apprentices see on their final exams?
Okay, so the first question, the one about ratios. So the ratios depend on the trade discipline, right? But we tend to keep the ratios very low. So in other words, usually we're looking at that you'll see for every fully qualified tradesperson, it's usually for the first year or second year apprentice, it's one-on-one. And as the apprentice starts to develop more capabilities as they get into year 3 and 4 of their apprenticeship, then it could be a little bit more, the number could be a little bit different in terms of saying you may have 1 to 2 or 3 apprentices. But generally speaking, especially early on, for those of you that maybe have never seen what it's like to work in a steel company, there's a lot of things happening, and we want to make sure that first and foremost the safety of the apprentices are taken care of. And so we are very careful and very aware that, the more closer mentoring they get, not only do they learn better, but also their safety is taken care of, right? And it also can vary depending on how good the mentor is. If it's a mature mentor, then the ratio may differ there as well. The second question was around, can you repeat it again?
Sorry, yeah. What kind of success rates do they see, do your apprentices see on final exams?
So generally, first of all, we expect all our apprentices to be CFQ'd. Where there is a certificate of qualification, we expect them to be, right? And we actually make it a condition of employment that they must write and pass their CFQ within 1 year of finishing off their hours. In other words, they've achieved the certificate of achievement, so they are now in the eyes of the ministry, the book signed off and all that. We give them 1 year grace period to say, it is your opportunity now to hone up any area you may not feel 100% sure on and go and write and pass your CFQ. For the first attempt, generally speaking, we see about a 50% success rate, but generally within the 1 year, we're at 90% graduation or completion. In other words, people are successful within that 1 year. Did I answer that question specifically? Enough?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's really good detail.
I think the key is making it a condition of the employment. I think that's the critical point.
Absolutely. Another great question we have here. What happens to the apprentice after completing the 4-year training and they decide to work with another company after investing into this program? Who's responsible for repaying the investment made on the apprentice? And is there a clause that's written in when the apprentice signs up? So I think this really talks a lot about that poaching that seems to be a big concern with employers when participating in apprenticeship training.
Great question, and that's the challenge we face. And that was one of our greatest risks. Well, if we are the only ones on the block developing apprentices, then yeah, there is the opportunity and the risk that you face that as soon as they've written and passed their license, and they're licensed, they're marketable. They can go out and they can search, but we have no penalty for them. We believe that growing our own the way we do, getting them exposed to our organization early on and us exposed to them, we hope that there is enough of a good fit that even though there may be an offer that comes along that may pay them a little bit more, because we know there are other organizations that do pay more than us, that they would think twice before they would leave us. but it gets back to why we believe we can't do this on our own, and why we need to partner with other organizations and like yourself and other companies to say, what can we do as a collective to meet the skilled trade shortage? Because it isn't just our problem, it's a countrywide problem. And you're right, there are certain organizations that they will not embark on this because they'll just say, well, we pay more and we'll use the word that you brought forward, the poaching, and they will poach. And what ends up happening is then everybody starts to do it a little bit because, you know, it just sort of cascades. And when that starts to happen, really nobody wins, and then that pool is going to continue to shrink. And when it shrinks to the point that there's none out there, then what do you do?
Thanks, Louie. So we're gonna do one more question. Thanks everybody for your questions. There are so many great ones, and like I said, we will follow up with you after the presentation if we didn't get to your question. But the last one I wanted to ask you, Louie, is where did the model of your program come from? Was it developed in-house, or was this a model that was used elsewhere?
We pioneered this, but we did it with Mohawk College. Without the college as a partner, you know, there was just no way. And Piero Cherubini at Mohawk College, you know, I think it's establishing a relationship with the college is critical, and that's what we did. And we had to really work with the college and get them on board. And they were right at the beginning. They saw that, you know, moving forward, technology was going to continue to advance, and they were very supportive of it. And then we got the government involved, and through, you know, different versions, because what it looks like today wasn't the way it started out. As it's evolved to the program it is today, but it was really, you know, having a driving force behind it, and that was recognizing that things needed to change in terms of supporting the higher level skill sets that are required in an advanced manufacturing organization.
Well, thank you so much, Louie, for all your time and your expertise. Just by the number of questions coming in, I can see how interested everybody is in this topic. So we will definitely follow up with everyone. I'm now going to pass it back over to Emily Arrowsmith, who's going to talk about some tools and resources that are available to employers as well as educators and regulators. So let me, Emily, your screen's up. Just give me one moment.
Just before you pass it over to Emily,
sorry,
if people want to ask questions to me specifically, I don't know how the process normally works. If they want to go through you and then to me, it's your call how you want to manage that. I'm more than willing to continue this dialogue, because I think that's the only way we're going to come to creative solutions, is working together. So I'm more than willing to offer up my time and try to answer as many questions as I can, and hopefully gather more information from others.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely provide your contact information after the webinar. So Emily, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. So take it away on the tools and resources.
Yeah, so we know that there's a lot of challenges out there for employers. So the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum has tried to contribute some useful tools and resources that employers who want to hire and train apprentices can use. And all these tools and resources we have are based on employer champions like ArcelorMittal Dofasco, who is a champion member of CAF. And we really try to share employer best practices with others. So we realize that employers are on a continuum. Some don't know anything about apprenticeship. They're very unfamiliar. So these employers are going to need some more introductory type information and resources. So at CAF, we have a new pamphlet that we've just developed. It's a brochure, and it really just introduces the concept of apprentice to an employer who might not know anything about it. And it really breaks down in an easy 5-step process the things that you would have to do to hire and train an apprentice. So we've got hiring, the steps that you would have to undertake, register, assigning a mentor, documenting training, and supporting certification. And really trying to break it down for employers and highlight some key steps. For those employers who might be hesitant about how much an apprenticeship training program is going to cost, we do have a study where we asked employers about the specific costs and benefits of their apprenticeship programs. Over 1,000 employers participated, and that gives level by level, year by year, the cost for their apprenticeship training programs and then the financial benefits that they received. And this study really shows that there is a business case for investing in an apprentice. For every dollar, on average, you receive $1.47 in return. So there is a financial benefit to making the investment. We also have a document that outlines the business case for diversifying your workforce and hiring and retaining women. Women tradespeople can actually support greater productivity at the workplace because they bring in new ideas about work processes, and they might make adjustments to the workplace that actually make it better for everybody. So those are the documents that we have available for employers who might not be familiar at all with the apprenticeship concept. For those employers who are convinced, they believe in apprenticeship, but they just have no idea about how to start up an apprenticeship program or what they would have to do to try and make it successful. And it can be quite daunting for an employer when they're first starting out. So based on employer champion best practices, we've developed a series of how-to guides that really industry-driven tips, practical tips, concrete examples and strategies of what employers who are actually hiring and training apprentices are doing at a skilled trades workplace to make their apprenticeship program successful. So one of the key things we have for employers here is the employer handbook. So it gives tips and strategies around how to recruit but also retain apprentices. And it's all based on employer champion best practices, and it gives very specific examples of the things that employer champions do. So the kind of training assignments, how they pick a journey person mentor. We also have the Skilled Trades Network, which centralizes information for employers looking to hire and train apprentices. And all the information is searchable by province or territory. We also have an Aboriginal action plan where we've talked to employers who successfully hire and retain Aboriginal apprentices and the specific things that they do to make that successful at their companies. In terms of the financial credits and grants that are available to employers, we have a tax credit summary which summarizes both the federal and provincial and territorial financial credits that are available to employers who want to hire and retain apprentices. For employer champions who already are hiring and training apprentices, CAF provides important opportunities for these employers to network and learn from one another. And we hear directly from employers that this is very important. They appreciate the opportunity to network and talk to other employers about training issues. So we offer webinars which employers can participate in right from their office, but we also offer in-person regional forums where employers can come and meet the other stakeholders in the community. And that's how these partnerships that we've been talking about through this entire webinar, that's how it gets started, through the networking and the relationship building at these regional forums. We also have a national conference as well, and these provide great opportunities for employers from different sectors and within their sectors to really come together, network, share ideas, and really encourage that out-of-the-box thinking that Louie was talking about during his presentation.
That's pretty much it for our presentation today. We hope that you enjoyed today's webinar. Be sure to join us for part 2 of this series on the job training and mentoring. Our guest presenter, Graham Trafford from Mott Electric, he'll join us and provide insights on how to make apprenticeship work for the company, but also ensure that the quality of training meets the needs of individual apprentices and journey persons that have the potential to be future leaders. If you would like more information about the future of apprenticeship in Canada, the National Conference Brief is available to members on the CAF website. As Emily mentioned, CAF provides lots of opportunities to network and meet the apprenticeship community. Next week we'll be in Edmonton, Alberta for Addressing the Essential Skills Gap. The session will highlight how stakeholders are currently working to address essential skills deficits among apprentices and the impact of these initiatives on progression and completion. We're also hosting multiple youth workshops in order to engage diverse youth in a conversation about careers in the skilled trades. At 4 events across Canada over the next year, we'll be collecting their views and experiences with a view to develop a youth-driven strategy around employment and careers. And lastly, as part of the Skills Canada National Competition, we'll be co-hosting Building Blocks for Youth Success in the Trades. At this session, we'll look at the 3 competency areas that young people must develop on the path to trade certification: essential skills, technical skills, and employability skills, and brainstorm ways the apprentice community can better ensure parents and educators know what it takes to excel as an apprentice. Lastly, don't forget to join us on our social media community. This is how we really stay in touch with you and let you know what's happening in Canada's apprenticeship news, events, and trends. So thanks again, everyone. I want to say thank you again to Emily and Louie. We hope you have a wonderful afternoon. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to email us at info@caf-fca.org. Have a great day.